This is 10 Questions to Cyber Resilience, brought to you by Assurance IT. Released twice per month, every episode brings you one step closer to cyber resilience by hearing how IT leaders are practicing cybersecurity. Resources mentioned in the episode can be found in the show notes. If you're ready to take your cyber resilience to the next level, be sure to subscribe so you can catch every episode.
So excited about this, folks, for the podcast today. I've got a friend, a colleague, a professional expert in the field. I won't do the introduction because I probably won't do it justice, but we're going to get started here. Chris, if you want to introduce yourself, I'm really excited to have you on the podcast here today because you really are a top-class individual. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Chris.
Oh, with that introduction, I don't know how I'm going to introduce better than that. But so Chris Catanzaro, I'm the Worldwide VP of Channels and MSSP at Halcyon, which is a really cool kind of new company, kind of a startup still. Like we're just getting past the full startup stage, I think.
And that's the interesting part, right? And the exciting part for me anyway. So Chris and I, probably not everyone knows this, but we met back at the SentinelOne a couple years back. Phenomenal job at SentinelOne. And then when I heard Chris was joining Halcyon, I had to go find out what that was all about. And excited to mention that Assurance IT, shameless plug here, is also a reseller of Halcyon. We are excited to be joined with this exciting team in Halcyon, and really a game changer in the industry, and frankly, sometimes unbelievable, Chris. So Halcyon, like you said, a relatively new company. It's been would it be safe to say that you guys have been under stealth mode for a while now, and now you're coming to the market?
Yeah, I think it's probably safe to say we've been in the market for a little over 18 months. So, out of stealth probably 18, 24 months ago. But yeah, I mean, first of all, love my friends over at SentinelOne and had such a great experience there. So wonderful, lifelong friends and colleagues, and the best of the best still work over at SentinelOne. So much respect and love to my SentinelOne family, and I do miss them, but I think it's a leading question is like, why Halcyon, right? Like, how'd that come about? Because SentinelOne was an amazing environment and phenomenal. Certainly was one of those deals where I wasn't really looking to do anything. And a person who I said I would always work for had reached out to me. His name's Jeff Williams. A lot of people know him in the industry. He was with Ironport and FireEye, and he's a longtime Bain Capital guy. So he's our CRO in residence. And I was like, no, I'm not interested. I work at this great company called SentinelOne, and we've had this great run, and I'm not interested. And then they started to tell me what they did here at Halcyon. I just kept getting more intrigued, and we had such a great early discussion. Then we started talking about who's on the board of directors, and then really just what the problem was we were solving. And it started to become really compelling. I was like, let's go do it again. Let's go get this big adventure again. So came over here, really helped get things off the ground.
Fantastic. And you know what, they're lucky to have you, knowing your track record. So tell us, Halcyon, tell us about the product. What exactly is Halcyon, and how does it help customers?
Yeah, so it's super exciting, right? So we help customers kind of before, during, and after a ransomware attack process, etc. So what's really, really cool is we don't compete. So we don't compete with SentinelOne or CrowdStrike or Microsoft. We actually have a micro agent that sits behind your EDR, and that micro agent is basically tuned to look for all the TTPs around ransomware. So including full 0 days, the whole bit, but we're specifically looking for how ransomware actors work. What they do, where they put data, what kind of things they like to turn off so that they can go about their business, once they get privileged access. So the first thing we do is, and it's a specific module, but the first thing we do is we stop the first thing that the ransomware groups do. So we stop data exfiltration. So we're looking specifically for large volumes of data going to specific locations that we know are known bad. Because where we sit in the environment and where our micro agent sits, we can actually see the true destination of where data would be going. And we are able to stop those processes. So we'll let a little bit of data go through just to prove that it's actually going, and then we can shut that process down. So we're trying to work in concert with, what we know the bad actors are doing. We're trying to stop them. So first, stop the data from exfiltrating. Then we're looking around just at all the prevention and blocking we can do through AI and ML. It's like second thing, try to block everything we know. There's a lot of different solutions out in the marketplace still, so unfortunately, if we knew everybody had really high-end EDR, maybe it would change the approach, but we have to take the approach of like, we don't know what people have for blocking. They could have a myriad of solutions from really kind of lower end stuff all the way up to the higher end EDRs like SentinelOne and CrowdStrike. So take the approach of like, we don't know what you got, so we're going to just up level whatever you have. We're going to take that game up considerably, specifically around ransomware. But the reason why people really get excited and why they really want to buy Halcyon is we do ultimately is we capture the key material, and we capture that all the time. So there's a certain way that the ransomware groups are trying to go in and encrypt your environment. And we're capturing components of how they do that and where they store the keys so that we can recreate the keys. So therefore, our customers are never really ransomed. Like worst case, say all the blocking stuff between what we do and all the other solutions in the marketplace do gets bypassed. We still ultimately have that encryption key that we can recreate and then just unlock everybody and get you back up and running and back in business. It's super compelling.
It's fascinating. Sometimes even hard to believe, but I've seen it work and I've seen it in action, and it's really impressive. And this is what I tell customers all the time. Ransomware, we keep saying it, and sometimes we feel like it's an overused word, but in my opinion, I mean, it's just, the bad actors are just getting more ruthless. Their attacks are just getting better. The force multiplier of AI today. So I think I keep telling customers it's a matter of layering your protection. You need to have world-class EDR. You need to have, and I like that. Well, I like the term you use, like a micro agent, right? Because a lot of customers are talking about the fact that they have a myriad of agents on their box, right, or on their workstation or server or whatever, and that sometimes the elephant in the room here, let's address it. I mean, it sometimes becomes what they call agent fatigue. So I like the term that you talk about, micro agent. So maybe can you give us a little bit about that? Because I think it's important that customers understand what that means and what that impact has on a system.
Yeah, we have a tiny agent that's designed to sit behind your EDR. So the whole point is let the EDR keep doing everything it does right. EDRs are a very awesome and powerful tool, and it's trying to block every kind of attack. We are really laser focused on ransomware. That focus gives us the ability to have a much more narrow agent focus, making us just a super lightweight micro agent. And inside of our micro agent, we use these little micro models. So we're breaking it down into small models that allow everything to have, we have almost no CPU hit, and our total size is like 30 megs on the agent we actually put out there. But we're not dragging the systems down. And even when we're doing decryption, like if we do a demo, because we don't have too many people, but we have 0 customers that have had a ransomware attack just with our blocking. But when we're doing a demo to prove out how our decryption works, you can see the only time we have any level of CPU usage is when we're doing the decryption, which is what you would want, because if your device is encrypted, you're not using it for anything else. But even then, we're seeing like the max we'll see is like 12% CPU usage for the decryption. The rest of the time, we're basically not even a blip on a radar. So it is important. Nobody wants more agents, to be honest. Like it would be awesome if we could just go, oh, we'll just be part of the SentinelOne agent and push it out. But it doesn't work the way, because if we do that, then we can't do some of the other things we do, like where we watch the watcher. And if we were inside of that agent, we wouldn't be able to watch it from the outside. So we do things like we make sure that nobody can unhook your EDR solutions. And we'll fire off alerts if they do try to unhook it. We'll make sure that they can't go in and delete the shadow copies and things like that. We wouldn't be able to do that if we were in the same spot, because then the attackers would just elevate their access by mimicking a high privileged user and then shutting that down. So you talked a little bit about it. It's like an overused term. I'm going to make up a new term someday, but today, defense in depth is a term that's brought up. I got to figure out a better one. But there's a lot of things in life where it's proven that if you have 2 or 3, you're going to have 10x the coverage than if you have 1. And I know everybody has agent fatigue, but when you do testing on our product, you mentioned too, like nobody believes it. Well, once we do testing, we can prove that our agent doesn't have any drag on the systems, and it's it doesn't compete with anything else. So we're not like having like competition of like blocking the same thing or us blocking like your CrowdStrike or your SentinelOne.
So you bring up a good point, because I've seen situations where ransomware comes in, and like it or not, whether you're a world class or you're a straggler in the antivirus space, which customers are still victim of having to use some old antiquated antivirus. And it happens where either the antivirus or the EDR agent gets bypassed. Somehow or another, it happens. I mean, these attackers are bad. So I think having that, like you said, having it decoupled, now that kind of gives you that extra layer of protection in the event that your EDR does get. Is that a fair statement, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we're trying to do. And it is, I mean, most people don't want to get ransomware. There's the random person who says, I don't care if I get ransomed. In that case, don't buy us. But it does make a lot of sense. If you're trying to specifically stop a process, it makes sense to have a separate agent for that. And we find that that's the most expensive thing. If you get breached and somebody steals some of your data, that could be bad, but you don't know what they're doing with it. When they extort you and they shut down your systems, or they take your data and say your data is going to be held in the wild unless you pay us, we find that to be real hard costs, and the others are sort of soft costs or questionable costs.
So talk to me about, see, that's important. That's a very important topic you bring up. So that double extortion conversation, right, where the data is exfiltrated, that's one piece of it, where they hold that, and then they obviously, ransom you, and then you're basically kind of wondering, do I pay to get, my decryption keys, and at the same time now the data is out there. So are you seeing, from a 1A, 1B type perspective, are you seeing priority put on, having the decryption keys or the data exfiltration piece, or is it kind of just hand in hand now?
No, without a doubt, the best thing you could do is stop it. I mean, without question. So our Halcyon customers we stop all fronts. So we stop the data from exfiltrating, and we stop the encryptions from happening, period. So what we see with the insurance is sold, and we work very closely with a lot of insurance brokers and carriers, but insurance is sold like bullet points, right? Like, you're covered for ransomware, you're covered up to so many dollars of an extortion payment, you're covered. What we see is that once you have your insurance policy, if you get a breach, the customers want you to spend all the money. It's like they feel like they're entitled to that money. So we see them say, well, I want to pay for the data, and I want to pay, the ransom, which is the worst thing you can do, because you're just basically giving the bully your lunch money, and they're going to come back and bully you again. So maybe a roundabout answer. Number one thing would be to stop it all. Number two, if you were to pay for your data, we would tell you never pay for anything, because that's probably really bad. You're just egging on the bad actors. But if you're to pay for your data, there's no proof. There's no way for them to prove that they deleted all your data. So
100%.
Ransomware groups, they're saying, I'm going to steal your data and I'm going to put it at a public site. Like, I'm going to drop it on GitHub or something like that. There's no way for them to prove that they deleted it all, and they can't just call you up in 6 months and do it again. So the best thing you can do is just stop it from getting out. The double tap is we see the data concerns people a lot, because they don't know what people are going to do with it. So that is a big fear. It's like, what do we do with the first? You're saying, I want my data. We see, because people pay the policy. Now, if it was their own money, I think it might be different, right? They're basically, I paid my insurance policy, I paid my monthly premiums. I want bullet point number 2, pay my ransom, so.
You've mentioned cyber insurance a couple of times now, right? And this is becoming a sore topic for a lot of people, especially those who are, where their premiums are being jacked up 25, 30, 40%. In some cases, I've seen some where they go up, 75, 80%, just because when the insurance companies come around, they determine that, the company's hygiene is probably not where it needs to be, or they don't meet all the requirements. And in some cases, they're getting their policies actually revoked. What are you seeing within the cyber insurance space, where a customer comes to their provider and says, hey, I've got this, this ransomware mitigation software, or this, this decryption software? How is that helping customers? Is it really making an impact? Is it bringing those premiums down?
Yeah, it's huge, actually. So we work with several brokers, and we've briefed, there's so many carriers out there. So we probably briefed 75% of the carriers. All the carriers will say this: they all want to give somebody a discount if they have Halcyon, for sure. They will all tell you they can't give the discount without the broker. So, it's the rule is you have to buy your insurance from a broker, which is a good thing. But every carrier says, boy, we wish we could make every customer have Halcyon because it reduces our risk. So all they care about is risk, right? We reduce the risk surface of their customers by so much by mitigating the ransomware. And by the fact that they love that we capture the keys so that we're looking at recovery, not just prevention. Prevention is huge. And today we're 100% efficacious on the prevention side, but the recovery is what excites the insurance companies. So we have a really tight relationship with Gallagher as a broker, and Gallagher is kind of built a consortium of carriers where if you're a net new customer to Gallagher, they'll get you a 15 to 20% discount on your cyber insurance. It's one of those things where if you're existing, you may already have a discount. So we have to be careful how I say that, but Gallagher's been amazing.
Big disclaimer there, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few specific carriers who will give a discount as well. We have a customer in the UK that I probably can't say their name, but they actually they use Marsh, and Marsh is somebody that we're working on. They're the largest broker, and they called up Marsh and said, we just implemented Halcyon, can we get a discount? And then Marsh called the carriers, and then without a program around it, they issued them a 20% discount.
That's a very valuable piece of information there, Chris. So
we've had a
folks are
lot
listening,
of we've had a lot of medium-sized companies that just couldn't get insurance, and they can get it now. That's another thing. It's like they weren't even.
That's a very important data point there. I think if there's anything out of the value we give our podcast listeners here is go out there and speak to your cyber insurance companies and ask them how to lower premiums, and if Halcyon's on that list, let's make sure that it becomes part of the conversation.
Yeah, ask us. We'll help you.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, we know them pretty well, and I wish it was a one size fits all. I wish I could just say, hey, you're going to be guaranteed a 20% discount, but there's a lot of aspects that go into your insurance. There's a lot that go into what industry you're in, what your risk profile is, etc. So there's no way to blanket it, but we're very successful at helping our customers get a reduction in premium.
Insurance never is a blanket type thing or a one size fits all. We know that.
No, it's a great. We've had such tremendous success with our insurance partners, though. They are probably our biggest fan. I think what's interesting about with Halcyon and our focus on ransomware, it is their number one problem. So every insurance carrier I've spoken to, when we brief them, we'll ask them, how's business and what's your concern? They actually are able to make money off, they used to use the term actuary tables. That's not really a thing anymore because now you use like algorithms and computer models to do all that stuff. But every single one of them says that they basically lose money on cyber insurance, but they're afraid to cancel offering cyber because they make so much money on all the other types of insurance they offer. So nobody wants to be the first to be like, we're out of the cyber business because we lose money. It's just a lost leader. So they understand that now. If they can get all their customers on Halcyon, it becomes a winner.
Yeah, I agree. And we're talking to all our customers about Halcyon, and it's becoming a very important conversation. You mentioned something, Chris, prevention and the recovery. So, let's give an example here. So if I'm not a Halcyon customer and I do get ransomed, I pick up the phone and I call Halcyon. Is it too late? Can you guys help?
Oh, love the question. So we want to be thought of as like the SEAL Team 6 of ransomware. Everybody should feel comfortable calling us. Actually, they really should call you. They should call Assurance IT. But and then you guys should call us, and together we should help solve the problem. But we do have a recovery service. We call it keyless decryption. And so at any given time, so we have a whole team of ransomware experts. That's our whole deal, right? So we have a whole bunch of former hackers, basically, that are reverse malware engineers. We have a big team of them around the world, actually. So we have 24/7 global support on this. At any given time, we have cracked about 30% of the active ransomware families out there. When I say that, what I mean is that we probably have a decryptor for about 30%, and that is always because the ransomware groups will change their code or they'll change their algorithms, and then our key might not work, but then we figured a different one out. So any given time, about 30%. So if anybody was to get ransomware, the first thing they should do is really call Assurance IT and then have you guys call us. We'll bring in our team, and all we have to do is get a sample of the executable. We'll give it to our malware research team, and within an hour, they'll come back and say yes or no. There's no cost to it. They'll say either yes, we can decrypt it, or no, we cannot.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Actually, we'll give one other answer, which is we've decrypted this family before, but we do need money to look a little bit more, but we prefer the yes, no. So yes, we can decrypt it is magic. That is absolutely, as one of our guys says here, he's like, that's a movie shit, because if we have that in the customers and the CEOs and the CFOs of those customers, and especially the insurance companies, they go crazy because we'll go in and they'll say, we've been ransomed. They're asking for $4 million of ransom. How can you help us? We get that executable. We find out if we have it. Then we simply trim it up, is the way I call it. And then we'll push out our agents across the customer environment. Then we'll push down the decryptor, and then we can bring everything up at the system level. Everything is decrypted and everything is usable in hours. So we can bring everything back up. And then we tell the ransomware people like, we're good. No pay. And then
Now I understand why he calls it movie type stuff. That's Hollywood type stuff right there.
That's Hollywood stuff right there. Yeah, it's really cool. So that's number one is keyless. That's really awesome. We will do, we work with a bunch of IR firms and a bunch of breach coach firms.
Right.
So the largest breach coach firms have us on speed dial as well. But we will do a key decryption, which is where if the customer insists on buying paying the ransom, or usually you can negotiate a way down. So if they pay a much reduced negotiated ransom and they get the decryption key, we'll send that to our malware analysis team. They'll review that code and make sure that there's no secret backdoors, make sure it's clean code. A lot of people used to just pay that and like drop it in and hope their systems come back up.
Right.
So we'll clean it up, make sure it's a very clean setup. And then at the same time, we can push that out through all our agents and then bring a customer back up. We actually have been pulled into that business. We didn't really want to do that because we're a software company, but we do that. That's pretty cool too. It's much cleaner and it's a much better way to bring your systems back up versus some of the other options out there. So yeah, a lot of the IR companies are working with us on that, and it's a very clean way to bring the environment back up. And I will say this, like 100% of those people become customers and stay happy customers once we're engaged.
Yeah, I can understand why. I mean, this is something that once you see it in action, it's hard not to justify the investment afterwards. Unfortunately, it kind of works that way, right? When you get hit with a big event, and then, that's when you start realizing that perhaps you need to invest more. But I mean, from what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, and the people I'm talking to, a lot of excitement around the product. If there's any suggestions or any recommendations you have for the audience on how to go ahead and kind of learn about Halcyon, because obviously they can talk to us, but I mean, the website, is that probably the best place for you guys to kind of, showcase what's going on there?
Yeah, I would say we just relaunched our website, which sounds
Right.
really cheesy, but it looks really good. A lot of great information on there. There's actually some super cool information on the website just in general. So we aggregate, being kind of the golden source for ransomware, we aggregate what we call a magic quadrant of ransomware, and we talk about all the different families. I keep telling the team that we need to not sell the data, but just make it publicly available. But there's so much good data on there for you to understand the TTPs that the ransomware groups use, who's the most active, who's the most successful, who's the hardest ones to deal with, where they're really tricky, using new techniques and procedures.
Right.
A lot of great info on there, not just about us, but also about ransomware.
No, I have to give you kudos to that, because I've actually subscribed to the newsletter, and I'm kind of watching you guys online, social, the social. You guys are really really engaged, putting a lot of valuable content on the YouTube channel, on LinkedIn, and then the website is full of resources. So yeah, I can attest to that. You guys are doing a fantastic job of bringing awareness, not only from your product perspective, but also just the industry in general. So which is great from a vendor manufacturer perspective. I have to say that's pretty impressive.
Thanks. Yeah, we have. The other thing, as you mentioned earlier, just to go back to it, is some people are like, "Oh, it's too good to be true," and there are some, like any startup that's being really successful, we'll get some FUD thrown around. And I would say the best thing we can do too is prove it. When we give people a demo or we do a POC, we had a partner organization out of APJ, and they were doing a POC with us, and they threw like, what was it, 60 gigabytes of 0-day ransomware at us. They went and they put a whole bunch down from some different dark websites and whatnot, and then they 0-dayed it. They morphed them all. And then they ran it all at us all at one time. And we literally stopped it all. We didn't think we would stop it. We figured for sure someone would get through. But we stopped it all. We thought we would be more like showcasing the recovery on that one versus stopping it all. But my point is people should definitely take that Halcyon challenge and see it, because people are going, oh, I'm not sure how that works, or whatever their drawbacks might be. I would say every time somebody goes into a demo and then a POC, they're blown away. They usually either buy us, or if it's a partner type organization, they partner with us. Certainly the insurance companies were like that. They're like, it would never work. And now they all want their customers to own us. So,
and explains why. So yeah, listen, Chris, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me and the audience about Halcyon and your success throughout this whole journey, moving over there and seeing, like, I'm watching this from the from the grassroots here. I really like what you guys are doing. We're going to go ahead and share some links in the podcast when we broadcast this and put it on the social. So we'll be sharing some important reference information for everyone. Chris, I know it's lunchtime for you there, so I took some of your lunchtime, so I apologize for that.
No worries. There's no lunchtime for me. I got up at 6 a.m. my time and work till like 7 p.m. my time. That's just how it is.
A true professional, man. Yeah, they don't make them like you anymore, man. They don't.
I don't know about that. There's some good kids out there. Well, have a good trip to the old country. Go stop by the province, Catanzaro, at the bottom there, right across from
We'll
Sicily.
try and make a quick trip in there. Yeah, absolutely, man. Looking forward to the good food, the good wine. Chris, I know we're going to be talking again soon. So again, thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure, man. And for all the folks out there, if you want to learn more about Halcyon, you can reach out to Assurance IT directly, give the folks at Halcyon a call, but we work tightly with them. So let's go ahead and make sure we mitigate your ransomware attacks and prevent any disasters in your enterprise.
Thanks. Thank you for your partnership. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Cheers.